the movement was to actually get all of the header stuff out of PageTPL, make the PageTPL simpler. And so if you open up one of these Drupal 7 HTML templates, it just has the header stuff, your CSS, your scripts, and then it does print page top, print content, print page bottom. And essentially by doing this is the same way that PageTPL will look in Omega. There are some other special zones besides the content region. The top region that would contain your logo, title, slogan, main menu, and then the breadcrumb lower down. All of these are kind of required regions. They're not really, but are zones. Nice to have in there, or you're going to lose some major functionality in your site. But in Omega, I've now turned all of these regions into generated regions, where in PageTPL you used to have to go in, and then you had all of this junk with your title and your logo and your slogan. Now, I have essentially faked that the branding area, which is going to contain the logo, title, and slogan, are their own special region that gets generated on the fly using region TPL. So you can overwrite that, and all the templates are available for controlling even the main content area as its own region. Quick sample, and this is just really what was demonstrated before. Regions always declared the same. Page top, page bottom, and content are actually required by Drupal at this point. And then all the extra regions that have been defined. There's actually some more in the official release. But we can see where we have our regions header first, regions header second. And then we can see a zone that's wrapping around that is our header zone, and it contains header first and header second.
So it looks like there's a one-to-one relationship. Oh no, they're not, because those are grouped.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because this is the same way you do scripts.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have the open array bracket there.
Yeah.
Like, yes, so it's just adding that to an array, and essentially it loops over it and just detects all your zones and starts spitting stuff out. Now, this is the new logo for Omega. It took me a couple days to actually do this, and this is what I'm calling the Omegacon instead of the DrupalCon. And he's cool because he's like ninja and stuff. Now, mind you, these are all wireframes done in Photoshop. It looks pretty clean, and it looks like it might already be working, but it's not. Just images.
We're going to use our imagination.
Use your imagination. You'll be able to do this stuff. So, with these zones that I've created, and I have a header sub and a preface sub that are now wrapping the regions that Omega initially always gave, this interface is going to be where you can manage and configure where these zones appear in the page, where you can quickly rearrange the order of your regions inside that zone, and then do various other configuration options. First thing, and it's hard to see, but we pop down here. If you were to click up here, little add new zone, you'll be able to create new zones on the fly. So we can see a new one popped up. Type in our name, and now we've actually created a new zone that if we wanted to move one of our header regions down to, we could. And then we see with each of the zones, we have an add new region link there. And so I just clicked here and got our new section to add a region. And these are the same things that are being defined in the .info. The way this is going to work is that there will be a mechanism that once things are saved, it may be done via Ajax. I haven't hammered that out yet. This will all be done on the fly and rewrite your .info file for your thing. So any zones or regions that were added will automatically be updated in your .info. And
so you'll be able to use the GUI or just sit there and type it out as you want.
In the .info file, which is the current way I've done it in all of my tests, just to see that the structure was right to accommodate something like this, I think.
Let me see if I can nutshell something.
Go.
So in the past, if I downloaded Omega and I installed it, and suddenly I realized, geez, I really need a region between the header zone and the preface zone, I had to hack the theme to do it. But now I don't, because now there's a whole interface or the info file. I can add regions as well without ever having to destroy the original Omega file, which allows me to then update moving forward.
Yes, you're going to love that.
That's fantastic.
Because in the previous iterations, all of these regions that were defined were quote-unquote hard-coded. It was possible to go in and add new regions, but the way you need to do that in your .info file, then you need to place the regions in your page TPL. Then you need to, if you want to have the same control that the other regions did, you had to go into the theme settings and modify this form array to add in all the same types of settings on that. So
Right.
it was, while possible, it was completely possible, but it was a horrible solution and the most common problem I ran across.
Yeah.
So the initial thing moving forward was always going to be to make it completely dynamic.
Right, it's all abstracted now. That's fantastic.
So we've added a new zone. We're adding now a new region. And now we have these available through whatever interface you use to place blocks into. Now we have a new region. This is demonstrating, this is actually the header second that was here, being dragged up. So a little draggable and droppable interface with jQuery. Also shows dragging it down to another zone. Everything shifting, being able to put this region anywhere you want. And I reset the screenshot so it's actually back the way it was. This would be a little contextual menu for some of the zone settings. And you can either enable or disable the zone quickly, just turn off a whole section of regions. You'll be able to rename it. Since it's rewriting things on the fly, you don't have to leave a named header first. I had so many complaints that even though they made sense to me what they were called, somebody wanted to call that, put your stupid logo here, region. So you can do that now. Name it whatever the hell you want, and it's still going to be in the same order. And then you can also apply CSS classes on the fly to the zone or a container wrapper. And in the same way, the region has the same abilities. Quickly disable it, rename it, or apply CSS classes to it. And so that kind of takes after, in a way, part of what Skinner does, and also the block class module. So, but now your container and grid regions can have any class you need applied to that. For
So,
any style.
is it going to save that CSS classing into your .info file, or is that
Theme settings,
theme settings?
all theme settings.
So that's just sitting in the database someplace, and when it builds it, it adds that to the fly.
Yep. Because of the new method of just the classes and attributes arrays when rendering the page, it's so simple when you can actually just pull out, here's a whole new list of string. Well, let's make sure they didn't put anything bad in it. Let's check plain on that, and then just add it to the array of classes.
So a lot of this classing is going to happen all in the database, so it's going to make your theme CSS even cleaner, because you're just going to be saying, oh, this class is already existing, you're just going to have to add the piece you want to it.
Should be.
And it should be very readable.
It really should be.
It's more magical every time.
It does. Okay, and this kind of goes to what Greg was just mentioning. Historically, in previous versions, regions were hard-coded in the .info and theme settings, where all of the magic was happening that did some of these same effects. While possible, it was very difficult to add new regions in. And let's see. Yeah, essentially we covered all that. It was kind of a crappy way to do it the first time around, and hard to really take it further than what I had conceived out of the box. If you needed more than that, it was going to be a little bit of a struggle. It's always been my plan, and it's been in every presentation I've done on Omega, that someday it's going to get a nice interface. It might be 2020, and I might get a flyer in my car by then, but it's going to get there. So now comes into the actual zone management. And I think this will help visualize what a zone is better. Dynamic zones. Previous versions of Omega. Dynamic zone, or a dynamic group of regions, was only content and 2 sidebars. The grid system uses push and pull classes to where in your source code you actually have, no matter what, and it should always be this way, you have your content appearing before your sidebars. And then sidebars in whatever order. But using the push and pull classes, you can actually shift your content one way or the other, move your sidebars around. Your source order stays the same, but the presentation is different.
Jake, you want to, I understand it, but not everybody understands why you do that. The reason you want your content to be at the top of your HTML source.
Yes. SEO, according to the SEO experts.
That makes sense.
You want your most important content to be at the top. Your sidebar that has links to Roger and Greg's blogs, you know, they're kind of crappy links anyway. You don't actually want those appearing above the content. You want those down. You don't want the search engines to hit that first and think it's the most important thing on the site.
Even though when you look at the site, they may be
Right.
the first thing scanning across the page,
Exactly.
are actually further down in the source.
Exactly. So, this was restricted to only be able to do that to the content and sidebars region. That was the primary usage in actually anybody that's done it before in Drupal 960 themes, same way. Now, in the new version, absolutely any region can have that, or any zone, any container of regions can be a dynamic zone. I put the wrong words in there. So now, if you want your your two header regions to now swap places visually on screen, but have the source order intact, you can do that. You want your H1 tag, that's your page title, or your site title that goes with your logo. You actually want to just put that on the right side of the page instead of the left where it normally appeared. You can do that just by declaring that one of these zones is dynamic. And the only rule about a dynamic zone is all of these, the regions stay in line. There's some magical math that happens that in the instance of a content zone and one or two sidebars, you want your content zone to essentially take up everything that the sidebars want. So using a dynamic zone, they're always in line. You'll never have one wrapped to the next line. They adjust automatically to what width it needs to be. So this example is with our content and two sidebars. We can see a bunch of fancy interface items. This little chain represents that those two are linked together. We're kind of locking those together. This one represents that these two are not locked. It can also be demonstrated in the fact that will be a jQuery slider. We can see that there's two here because they're unlocked. But because there's one, and don't even ask me if that's possible to build it that way. But there's only one here because those are actually attached to each other. So now demonstrating movement, we can see just by dragging that, the linked regions are being moved automatically, still staying tied together. Move that one back. Now we can see with an unlinked resize, because these were not connected, and I've actually taken and physically dragged this one. I took and grabbed the side of the content region and moved it over. Now there's becoming spacing between those